What's happening, folks? I'm back with another reaction, and to say I'm excited to do this reaction would be a gross understatement. Ever since I had the idea to start reacting to J-drama tunes, whether score or soundtrack, just basically pieces of music I originally heard in the context of Japanese television, like serial television drama, or a J-drama, as it is often called, I knew that one of the shows that I would have to talk about and one of the soundtracks I would have to go through is for Ouroboros. So this is a show, Ouroboros, if you didn't know, it's the concept of the snake eating its own tail. It's sometimes used to like depict concepts of like eternity or endless cycles, if you will. It's used in other ways too, but bottom line, this relates to sort of, or the content of this show is less about sort of the significance of the symbol itself and just more about like the idea of an entity coming back to destroy itself. So yeah, it's a show that is, I would argue, a mixture of neo-noir with like beautiful Shakespearean style tragedy, which is to say it takes place in, you know, the modern day. It's like a gritty kind of neo-noir show, but the main essence of the show is that these two kids who were at an orphanage together became good friends, like brothers. They were part of this orphanage that had a very dark secret, and like if any of you end up watching this, I can't spoil it. Like I want to, because it's like you'd be like, oh my god. But basically they're at this orphanage where there's, you know, a handful of kids and they become really close, and both of them become particularly attached to the teacher, this young like female teacher in her mid-20s who runs the orphanage. And so ultimately she gets killed, and it's like, you know, it's like this weird murder that no one really can explain, and like, so the two kids grow up and like you think, or the world thinks, that they've lost contact, and one of them goes on to be this sort of like unconventional but very effective detective, and a detective who's rising in the ranks more rapidly than you would think, given how young he is. But again, he's really good, and that character is played by Ikuta Toma, a Japanese actor in a lot of different kinds of shows, going back to the, like at least the early 2000s, if not the late 90s. That's him on this side over here. The other guy, Oguri Shun, I mentioned him before in my Hanayori Dango music-related reactions. He's an actor I've seen in a million things. He's amazing, but this might be my favorite show from him. His acting in this is just unbelievably good, but he plays the other like kid at the orphanage, the other, like, you know, not really brother, but the other of the like sort of in essence brothers, who is advancing in the world of crime more rapidly than you would think. He's sort of a Yakuza like mid-level boss, but he's like becoming more and more powerful, and again, he's younger than you would think for how much influence he has. But it turns out that they remain in contact with each other, they're actually working together, and their sole purpose in life is to find, or is to explore all the resources that official law enforcement agencies have to offer, and all the resources and contacts that the dark underworld of crime have to offer, with one goal: to figure out who killed essentially their like adoptive mother, this young teacher who ran this orphanage. And the more they look into it, again, one guy looking into it with his official law enforcement access, and the other guy looking into it through the underworld, and, you know, who knows, and does this guy know what happened, and so on, to eventually figure out who did it. And the more they look, the more it seems there were nefarious forces at work within both government and police, like specifically the Japanese National Police. So it becomes this sort of like, again, like neo-noir, like sordid like exploration of like past misdeeds and whatever, but it's very dramatic, it's very like stylized. There is a bit of action, but, you know, Ron, if you end up seeing this, please don't be turned off, because the action is not really the main essence of the show. It does exist in some scenes here and there, but it's really about this, like, it's a whodunit, number one. Number two, it's like darkly atmospheric and so on, and as I said, it's stylized. Like it's dramatic neo-noir, but there are moments where it's like, it's about the sort of, you know, the dynamic of these two brothers, again, like friends from childhood. Anyway, they eventually figure it out, but it's like it's this dark and sordid tale, and as I said, it's like perfectly, beautifully tragic. Also notable performances, the actress down here, one of my favorite people in the world, Ueno Juri, who played Nodame in Nodame Cantabile, arguably my favorite J-drama ever. She plays a much different role here. In that show, she's very silly and, just ridiculous and so on. In this show, she's a much more like normal kind of character. And again, it's over the course of the show, without spoiling anything, I'll just say that there's so many different emotions, and again, it's just like perfectly, beautifully tragic. Also of note, Yoshida Kotaro and Yoshida Yu, married couple in real life, but also two actors, one actor, one actress that I've seen in a number of different things, and they're both in this. And they're like, I think there's some moments where they kind of like, their characters flirt with each other a bit, which is, very meta, kind of cheeky comedy. So bottom line, it's a brilliant show. This is the official soundtrack, and we're going to start in this awesome soundtrack, which honestly, it'll be worth going through almost all the tracks. There's one or two tracks that are in like silly kind of dialogue moments where they have sort of a notably different flavor than the rest of the soundtrack. Maybe I won't react to those. But most of it I am going to go through, but I have to start with my favorite piece. It's the 8th piece on the soundtrack. It's called Missing Link. It's definitely score rather than soundtrack. And it's used in some of the most dramatic moments in the show. The first time you hear it is the most impactful because, as the first episode plays out, you're starting to learn about this one, like very successful young cop, this very successful young yakuza, and also this other, Ueno Juri's character is also a police officer, detective. So you're kind of learning who these people are or whatever, and then you're learning, okay, so there was this teacher who died seemingly in this random murder at this orphanage back in the day and whatever. And then like right when you begin to get maybe a little bit more of the detail or the information about the backstory, this track comes in, and it's when the guy who works in the police, but again, who's secretly working with his yakuza like brother to figure out what happened, he corners this guy who's in the police who like he knows now was kind of like dealing in drugs on the side, and actually his partner found out about it, so he had his partner killed through his yakuza buddies or whatever. So the main guy, or the young guy who's one of the main characters, the cop, not only does he's sort of like telling him like, you betrayed your partner, like you killed him, whatever, but he's also kind of like, and I can't tolerate that because, someone betrayed a person I felt very like powerfully about, whatever, and this music starts playing and it's flashing back to shots of the night that the woman teacher got killed and the two kids came outside and like saw her body and whatever. This is what's playing. So it's another piece that has kind of two parts. I reacted to a piece from a show called Crisis called Sisirk. This is similar in that like the first minute or two it's kind of this dark, murky sort of environment, sonic atmosphere. And in the show, that's when he first sort of confronts this guy and he's talking to him about like, hey, like you said this earlier, but I know that's not true, and I know you were one of the people drug dealing and whatever. So that's the kind of music. But then right when in the mind of the young cop, he's connecting what this guy has done to what happened to the teacher that he cared about in the past. The second part of the tune comes in, and I'd really like you to focus on the bass. Like number one, or not number one, eventually this like, this violin melody just takes over, and it's just incredible. It's like sonorous and like beautiful, but also powerful and like invigorating. But before that even happens, there's this rolling, kind of rumbling bass that comes in along with this little piano line. So keep all those things in mind, if you will. Let's get to it. This is from the Ouroboros soundtrack, a show from 2015. Oh, and by the way, I can't believe I wasn't going to say this. I do apologize. The music is by Kimura Hideakira. Kimura Hideakira doesn't get his birth date, but yeah, composer and arranger of music. The first show he's given credit for working on was 2013, so not, particularly, seemingly a younger composer, but yeah, working right up into the present. Several shows he's scored in 2022. So yeah, this is Kimura Hideakira, and the tune is Missing Link from the Ouroboros soundtrack 2015. I'm so excited to do this. Crazy like bassoon work maybe? It's funny that the second half of this is what I'm waiting for, but this is really good too. Oh, hear that bass? Steam layer. And right here, he starts flashing back. The bass. I thought it was bookended. I thought it was like A-B, but it's A-B-A. Sort of fakes going back into the B part again. But yeah, brilliant. That middle section, the B section, it's just so epic to me. Again, like as with it's going to be with most of these J-drama related reactions, part of why they sort of set my brain on fire so much is because I link them to the sort of emotionally or dramatically powerful, often both, scenes from which I remember them in the show. But again, like the ones that really stand out to me, I think are good pieces of music independent of that context. But yeah, bottom line, I really enjoyed that piece, especially that middle section. There are other tracks on this soundtrack which are like soundtrack. I'm gonna react, I think, next to it's sort of the theme song. It's, you know, not only played in the menu for the home release, the DVD set that I have, but like in a lot of the sort of moments where the two guys, like, you know, show that they're actually working together, which, you know, again, like publicly there's no official acknowledgement that they even know each other, and I think one of them like changed their name so that it wouldn't be easily traced by, oh, you were both at this orphanage. But when they sort of step up and they start working together, the track that I will next react to, it often starts playing. And I was thinking, like, right after this moment, when this dramatic, like, he corners this guy, and it's partly about what the guy's done, but partially about what he remembers, what happened to that teacher who looked after him and his friend, the next scene, his friend from the Yakuza world shows up. And without spoiling anything, it's just the first episode, they shoot the guy, they kill the guy. So again, you're watching, you're like, oh shit, so these are the two protagonists, but like, they ain't fucking around. Like, you know, okay, that guy was a corrupt cop who like killed his partner, you know, don't shed any tears over him, but it's this moment where like, okay, so these are like anti-heroes, kind of like they're playing for keeps and they're not playing by the rules. So yeah, that song plays like in that moment. So yeah, I'll come back and react to that one. Do let me know what you think of this. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Peace.